I want to clean my sax so I can relax.
Let's talk about that. Our first segment today, we're going to be talking about swabs. The first thing is, why is swabbing important on the saxophone? Well, when you play, you and all your grody little mouth germs get inside the saxophone, and the warm air causes condensation of water, which promotes like bacteria growth, gunky stuff on all your pads, which we'll get to later. Forethought, right? And it's just really important to get all that moisture out of there to save the pads and to keep all the key work that you can definitely see working. He was supposed to say something.
One eternity later.
There's different types of swabs that you can use. This one's probably the most common. It's a triangle shaped one. Mine has a hole in it. They're typically silk, but they can be in other
Configurations.
Other materials is what I was thinking that can absorb. And then there's this one called the dragon swab.
If you have one of these, please be careful.
Yes.
It does not work the same way the other swabs work, which we'll get to in a second.
This one, instead of one big piece, is a lot of different materials. A lot of different pieces from a smaller to bigger. And it is very popular with some people. And the last one, which we don't have here, is one that has an end plug in it that goes all the way in and stays there.
Yeah, it's one that you see a lot of people in your high school band room probably using and leaving in there, which we'll get to later. Sneak peek, don't do it. So how do we swab? Well, with the dragon swab, you kind of go back and forth. You don't want to pull it all the way through. I've never used one, which is why I'm not modeling it. But for the regular triangle swab right here, oh look, he's got all the kinks in it. You would take your saxophone. It's much easier to do it with like literally anything that's not a berry. Put the weight into the bell. You want to go big to small so that you're kind of funneling all the condensation. Once the weight is in there, you kind of want to jimmy it around the curvature of the bell. And if you didn't suck like I'm currently doing, keep it going. Why does your sax do this? It will eventually come out the bottom, and you will grab this and pull it on through. And you want to make sure to do that after every single time that you play this, because every time you play it, you're going to put your nasty mouth germs in there and promote warm air, condensation, all the things we talked about earlier.
Now, if you can't afford a swab, you can make your own. A good way to do that, I would recommend looking online. People have videos on how to do it to help you, but some things of note, don't make the material too big to where it gets stuck in the saxophone. A good way to do it is that you want it to be, so like you cut a triangle and you want it to be about as wide as the inside of your bell, and then you want it to be about as long as the straight part of your saxophone. Another thing is that you'll then take that material, which you can get from a store, you can cut it out of a shirt, whatever you want to do. Make sure it is absorbent and it doesn't have a bunch of fuzzies that are getting stuck in your horn. And then you can take a shoelace or whatever and tie it to one end. And at the end of that shoelace, you want to put a weight or something to help get it through the saxophone. Make sure that that is covered or coated in some way so you're not scratching up the inside of your saxophone.
Well, now you're here. You didn't swab, all your mouth gunk got in your saxophone, and now that C sharp key is sticking. Mine's not because I swab. But, you know, typically the keys that remain closed, the E flat key, the C sharp key, and the G sharp key are notoriously sticky. That will obviously be helped and possibly prevented, most likely prevented, by proper swabbing. But let's say you didn't do that. How are you gonna, you know, get it unstuck? Well, what you're gonna need, you're gonna clean the pad and the tone hole itself. You would start with the tone hole first. The pads are really delicate. You don't want stuff on them at all if possible. The first thing you're gonna do is take your nondescript brand of Q-tips. I don't know if Q-tips are a brand. It is, because these are called nondescript cotton swabs. You're gonna take your nondescript cotton swabs and you're gonna look at the pad and the tone hole itself. Why am I trying to model? You can't see. You do not want to touch the pad, but you want to run your Q-tip along the edge of the tone hole itself taking extra care to make sure that you don't leave cotton behind. That should get rid of any gunk on there. If it doesn't, you can dunk your cotton swab into some rubbing alcohol. Be extremely careful about this. Rubbing alcohol is going to, over time, cause more damage if you don't clean it off. It's just about being sanitary and getting whatever black, disgusting gunk you may have on there because someone didn't swab. Again, make sure you clean the tone hole first and check to see if that makes things better before you go onto the pad. And if that doesn't work, there's some other methods that my friend Jeremiah we'll talk about in a moment. And by a moment, I mean right now.
So if you don't want to go through that, there's other things you can buy to help keep your pads clean. First, you can get pad paper, which looks like this, but is actually pad paper. And it's a little piece of paper that you will take to your saxophone and put it in the pad you want to clean. You'll put it in, press down, not too hard, and pull it out slowly to clean it. After that, you can also use powdered paper, and that will help to keep it from sticking, and then the pad paper tries to get gunk out. Other things you can use as well, these are called key leaves. These help keep the 3 keys he talked about that always stick open so they don't get sticky. And you just put them over where the keys are. I'm not doing the right ones, but in the E flat and then the C sharp, and it props them open, and which also will prop open the G sharp key and keep them clean.
Sorry, keep going.
As a last resort, if you need to clean your pad on the spot, you can use dollar bills. The higher the better. And then you do the same thing as the pad paper with the dollar bill. But try to avoid that because dollar bills are dirty.
The higher the better.
The higher the better. Because it's probably touch less hands.
That's pseudoscience, kids. Just a few ending notes for you really quick. Let's just talk about some classic mistakes that me and Jeremiah have seen a lot of younger players do throughout, when we were younger players, now working with them. Number one, that swab we were talking about, the one that stays in your saxophone, this one. I put it in post, I'm sure I did. It's fine if you have it. It's not bad. Just make sure to not leave it in the saxophone. The black part at the end is an end cap, and a lot of saxophones have those to prevent things from going into where the neck meets the rest of the saxophone. But when you have that swab on there, that keeps condensation and your dirty mouth germs in there. So you can use it as a swab, but don't leave it in there.
Next thing that you want to do is when you're handling your saxophone, try to do most of your holding it by the bell. You don't want to hold it too much on the rods or anything else because you don't want to risk bending them. So try to handle it by the bell.
Another thing, saxophones, they are made of metal. They're made of brass, right? But you can bend metal, obviously. And this applies to all saxophones, but mostly tenor and bari. When you're going to put the neck on the saxophone, you should do that after you have already put your mouthpiece on the neck, as to not bend the neck itself when you're putting it into the rest of the body of the saxophone. If I had to put on my mouthpiece from here, I would be pushing this all back, and the entire thing would stop working. And it's even worse on tenor, if you can imagine it.
Last thing we want to talk about is how to lay your saxophone down. My opinion is that you want to lay it down on the side where the side keys are.
My opinion, the right opinion, is that you want to lay it down on the rods, since they are, structural support anyways.
Ultimately, neither of these are necessarily the best option. The best thing to do is to put it on a sax stand or put it back in your case.
That part's true. It's actually just better to not lay it down at all. But if you're going to, me. He's wrong.
No, I'm right.
He's wrong. He's always wrong. Hey, thanks for tuning in to our YouTube show thing. All the devs, make sure to hit the bell, but most of all, smash.
Forward aerial.
Him later.
Woo! Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for.
That like button. 1, 2, 3, 4.